Amy Ellenwood, and this is Paul Sheets, and we're going to be entertaining you for tonight. It's not really that, this is not rocket science, this is pretty rudimentary stuff, but there's a lot of people that don't know about stuff, and some people can need reminders. My father-in-law is 83 years old, and I always get him talking about, don't look at anybody, okay? Get him talking about stuff on the farm because he's on a century farm, which means he's like the third generation on it. And my favorite story that he tells is in 1954, I think it was, when they got their very first fridge, his mom says, it can go right there in the kitchen, but in the wintertime it's going back outside. It never left. You know, and then, you know, that house has been added on several times. Then they even made a little cove for the fridge where it sit in, and now the fridges don't fit there anymore, so it's next to it, and they put, you know, that type of deal. But I always ask them, how did you guys do stuff? And the biggest thing for them was refrigeration, but they had a well and a fan, windmill, and pump water up, and so they put their milk and stuff in there, and I don't think they refrigerated as much stuff as we do today. So anyway, so we're here to kind of talk about utilities in a time of disaster, and we're talking about Atlas and, you know, electricity going out and things like that. During Atlas, I lived out in Box Elder, and there was a family just moved in across the street from Louisiana. And I'm not picking on Southern people, but but they've never had to deal with snow and driving. That's really awesome. And heating. So they spent 3 or 4 days under a blankets in their bedroom. And I'm a smart aleck. If you don't know me, I'm a really big smart aleck. I'm like, why didn't you just light your stove? They're like, well, we tried, but it didn't work with no electricity. I'm like, why didn't you use a match? It'll do that? I'm like, holy crap, you know, so people just don't know. So if I'll try not to make you feel bad if you don't know, but if you don't know, you don't know. That's why you're here. So, all right, let's go. So we're gonna, at the end of this, you will have the knowledge and resources to help you aid in survival. The emphasis will be on backup, emergency electricity, water, and just utilities, basically. So, the first thing that people overlook is their campers. Many people have campers, RVs, things like that. They hold water, they have propane, I mean, they're a mini house, right? So, there are some pros and cons to it. They are self-contained. So, the big thing about them is they have to be ready. They have to be unwinterized. They have to have the water in it, make sure your propane's full, stuff like that. They're a pretty small area to heat and cool. However, if it's super cold out, they're probably not the most efficient to heat. So they're mobile. So if you need to go somewhere in a hurry, hook up to them and you can go. If you have a big enough shop, warehouse, garage, whatever, you can back them in there and help with the skirting and make sure that they're, you know, you stay out of the wind and things like that. They're not so much bulletproof, so they're not going to be one of those places you want to run and hide if things go really bad. They're hard to pack with a year's worth of provisions, so if you do have to move or go somewhere, you might want to figure out which stuff you're taking and with you and what stuff you're leaving. They take more fuel in the inclement weather. I mean, everybody kind of knows that, but it's kind of one of those deals. And when we started talking about this, it was like, okay, so what do we prepare for? Are we preparing for Atlas or the grid going down? Or are we preparing for a bomb hitting the base? You know, what are we prepping for? We don't know. We don't know. And everybody's situation is going to be a little different because everybody has different resources where they're at. So, backup electricity. Of course, there's the generator, gas and propane. I suggest totally having a propane one and not a gas one. Does anybody know why? Gas goes to crap in about 6 weeks now. Gas is terrible. So I work on old cars for a living, and gas goes bad. You know, guys are like, oh, I just drove it last year. We gotta drain everything, it goes back. So, and with the propane, you don't have to change your oil as much, your oil stays way cleaner, things like that. That's just what I prefer. I think probably Paul does too. He's your propane guy.
Yeah. No ethanol out of gas, so we'll last. We'll soon stay with it. So we have no ethanol in it. Corner Pantry's the only one that sells it mid-grade, no ethanol that I know of. Flying J's, empty oil.
So my sister-in-law works for the state, and they make her put ethanol fuel in her car. She was in a little town somewhere and they didn't sell it. And she got like 10 miles a gallon better putting regular fuel in. So, you know, I mean, it's not as good anyway, unless you want to go fast. Solar, great option if you don't have the fuel and propane and things like that. Downside is you gotta have some sunlight. And they will charge going through the clouds and things like that, but again, it's one of those deals. If you have more gas, you have more sun, what do you wanna spend your money on?
One thing on generators, you're probably it's gonna be loud and you'll eventually have lots of friends.
That's true.
And then eventually there won't be any gas, but, or it could not be. Depending on how long this atlas lasts, or blackout.
Water, plenty of drinking water on hand. I had that wrote down the other one. It takes like 120 ounces per day for a grown adult male a day. That's a gallon of water is what you should have. So how many gallons of water do you have sitting around your house? Probably most people don't have that much. I mean, we even left water out of this when we started doing it, and we started thinking about how much you use water. Water is in everything. You cook with it, you clean with it, flush your toilets with it. You know, water is huge, so lots of it. Ways to store it, 5-gallon jugs, empty milk jugs. Guys should have jugs that say food safe on them, really should. However, if it's in one of those emergencies and you didn't prepare, I think having water in anything would be better than not having any at all. So if something goes bad, fill your bathtub up right away, or both of them, or all three of them, or whatever you have. Scott was saying last time that they make a bladder that sits in a bathtub and you can, you know, fill it up, because the problem with the bathtub, it's open on top and it's contaminated. So if you need that water for cooking, God help us that we don't, because I don't want to drink something that I had a shower in, you know, that type of deal. You need to boil it. Chlorine tablets, bleach. You put 8 drops of bleach to a gallon of water, or a quarter teaspoon to 2 gallons. Your hot water heater. A lot of people forget about that. There's a drain on the bottom of them, and you can put a hose on it. Problem with that is, in this area, we got really, really hard water. So a lot of times they're stuck and they're plugged up. So you might want to check that before you need it, or have something there to, you know, drill it out or pick it out or something. Rain barrels. My God, goodness. I put one up the other day, like 3 weeks ago now, and we had a little rain on a Friday evening. I mean, it was like 15 minutes and it overflowed. I couldn't believe how fast it filled up. I mean, I went out there and I expected just a little bit in the bottom, and I was all happy, and I'm like, holy crap, it's full. Flushing your toilets, big one, big one. Water's in everything.
Survival. Key to survival is water. You can buy a pallet of water from Sam's Club for $4.68. Should be. You can actually get it cheaper if you buy 32 packs from Dollar General. Pick up your pallet. It's a lot of hauling.
Landon just got some flats for 97 cents somewhere. For a whole flat. Thank you, Sam. I laughed when they started selling bottled water. I'm like, who the hell is gonna buy that? I mean, I get water right out of my, you know, but it's pretty convenient, I guess, now, so. But I thought that was the dumbest idea ever when I saw it.
Do you have any idea how long water is good in, like if you fill a gallon jug of water and put it in the closet, how long is it good for?
It's still gonna be water no matter what. So if you're scared, boil it or put some bleach or chlorine tablets in. I'd rather have some than nothing.
Sure.
So, I've heard that if you put it in the clear plastic containers and set it out in the sun, that it doesn't fare very well.
No.
So you wanna definitely keep it cool and keep it in a closet away from sunlight. I also heard people painting the outsides of their jugs to not let light in. And all this stuff, I pretty much got off YouTube and, a few books here and there. And there's guys that do like hundreds of gallons in their garage, in like the blue buckets and stuff. I don't know how crazy a guy needs to get, but it must stay for some time, so. How you can get rid of your waste if you don't have water? You might need to dig an outhouse. A safe distance from like your gardens and your wells and things like that. You guys have all seen the movies where they burn it, they go to the bathroom in a barrel and burn it. Don't do that. That's really bad. I did some research on it, I thought, man, that's a great idea. Not a great idea. And what they're doing is putting diesel on top of it. And I think we can probably use our fuels in a lot better manners than that. So you can hand dig a septic system, you gotta have a little bit of water. You could put an outhouse over your lid for your septic system so that you don't have to flush and whatever. Be a good idea to have some of that RV chemical to put in there so that it eats it and that's enzymes and that type of deal. You can have a bucket and some lime, and lime's really cheap. Was it $3 or $4 for 50-pound bag? I mean, it's super inexpensive. Last class I was telling you, remember when the diaper genies came out? My kid was about that age, so it was my job to take it out, and I procrastinate a little bit. I pulled that out, whoa, it was bad. So use it, put a little lime in, then it keeps the smell away, and then you can go bury it or whatever later. Heating, and there's a lot of different ways to do this. When I started researching this a little bit, everybody thinks if you live in Texas, you don't need a heater, right? They got really cold this year, didn't they? So there was this little thing that I found everybody's doing, it's called the Crisco lamp heater deal. And basically, you take a metal can and put Crisco in it, you melt the Crisco and pour it in. A lot of people are using the microwave stuff. I use the barbecue because I was doing a bunch of it. Just stuck a can on there and got it going. And when it's kind of starting to gel up, you take a regular candle, like the taper candles or whatever, put a candle or two in there. And that gives you your wick. But they say, like this one here is a gallon. They say this one here will run 72 days if you run it 8 hours a day. So, and that's with one candle in there. I put 3. I like to stay a little warmer than most people. So, Crisco isn't that expensive. It took 2.5 of the jugs to fill up this 1 gallon container. And then I just built a little deal on it so I could cook a hot dog on there or something. But you put the terracotta pot on it so that it gets hot and it's kind of like a radiator heat deal. Now something like this, you're gonna kind of want to be in a little room, closet, something to that nature. You're not gonna heat your house with it, but it's gonna keep you alive, right? So this isn't like the first thing I would go out and buy by any means, but I did, or actually my wife went to a rummage sale this weekend. There's a whole bunch of paint cans there, so I brought them. So if anybody wants some, you're more than welcome to take some. So, pretty good deal. Then this one here actually got it lit so you can come up and feel how warm it is. But just took a like a $3 utensil deal that you set on your counter and put utensils in, so that you get a little light out of it too. So that it's light and heat. And then I've done a little bit of experimenting with them, and I've stacked more terracotta pots on it, and it helps, and it works. You know, you just keep getting smaller, because the more heat you get, the more it's gonna radiate and stuff like that, so. The big trick was keep trimming your candles. And obviously, you're gonna want a little fresh air coming in. You don't wanna just heat it or light it and die of carbon monoxide. Oh, we were talking about that too, get it, maybe a little carbon monoxide tester, a little battery powered one, so.
Pretty cheap, about $10, $12.
There's oil lamps, candles, the Crisco candle, Coleman lanterns. I mean, they're noisy and whatever, but they put off a lot of heat. I mean, I remember getting burned by them things when I was a kid. They're really put out the heat. Talk about Mr. Buddy.
Yeah, these are run about $60 to $75 for this one tank, Mr. Buddy. It's made for ice fishing or whatever, but it'll keep a small area pretty warm. And if you guys have probably heard, you can refill these bottles if you got a bigger tank. One of these propane filler couplers are only about $20. I think I paid $15, but this thing's pretty old. And you can refill these 1 pound bottles pretty easily off a 20 pound. You just put these, chill these in the fridge, screw it on your 20, put your 20 upside down, crack the 20 open for, I think it's a minute. They won't get them plumb full like they're when they're new, but they'll get it 3/4 full.
Is there any recyclable to the ones that you maybe have used?
Sorry?
The little propane?
Yeah, like these are, I keep all old ones and then just refill them with my 20 pound tank, the normal barbecue grill size tank.
You can actually buy hoses that go right from that to a big 20 pounder too.
Yeah.
And I just got one yesterday. I think they're $23 or something for those. Yeah, it wasn't bad. For a little camping stove.
$100 will get you a double one. Has 2 propane bottles. Or you definitely probably want to hardwire that one.
How long do they last?
I haven't used it much, because I just got it. It came with a bunch of ice fishing stuff I bought, so I can't really tell you that.
We used one last year.
6 hours?
Yeah, and
Per tank, roughly.
I think a little longer than that. Because we did a pop-up tent, and it was really cold. And one lasted all night. Yeah, and it kept it, we didn't freeze to death. We still got to go
Turn
hunting.
on and turn off too,
Yeah, yeah.
This in your-
Yeah. And then a wood stove. I mean, when I was a kid, one of the things that really irritated me when I went to the service, my dad got a propane stove, a weed eater, a plow.
He replaced you.
Yep, a plow on his 4-wheeler, and there was something else.
Riding lawnmower.
Yeah, we were riding or self-propelled anyway. And my sister didn't have to do nothing, right? So, but my dad also worked at a sawmill, so he'd get those big green butts off the end of them, and I had to split every single one of them. My wife suggested that the other day. I'm like, no, we're gonna go get regular wood. We're getting good stuff. We're not getting those wet butt ends. But wood stoves are kind of a thing of the past right now, right? Anybody have one? Holy smokes! Not many people do. That's pretty impressive.
Ooh, I do.
Kept us alive during that one. Because
Absolutely.
we have a well, and for 8 days, we had no power, no water.
No, that's
You
crazy.
couldn't get out, we were snowed in
We
for
were
8
snowed
days.
in for like, for probably 5 days at least.
Sounds like heaven to me.
It was-
No cell
We just
phone.
had low, well, our cell phones just started working after, so.
Really?
Mhm.
No, but a lot of people don't. So I was talking with Scott, and he's got a wood stove ready to go that he can pull in the house, and he's got chimney pipe that he can stick through the window, and I mean, it's ready. So bad part about that is you gotta have some fuel for it, right? So if you plan on going that route, start getting some wood supplies. There's also emergency, like a toilet paper in a metal can with a bottle of isopropyl alcohol. That'll keep you alive overnight in your car. I mean, that's kind of a good deal. Sterno cans, if nothing else. And there's all kinds of cool videos on how to build your own sterno cans and stuff, and I've been playing with that. It's kind of fun. And you can cook with them and that kind of deal too, so.
And the gas stove, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and gas stove. And natural gas, I think natural gas, ours work during Athens. So, you don't need electricity necessarily, unless you got the thermocouple and all that in your heaters, so you might want to try to figure out a different way to use that, like your range, stuff like that. There's a bunch of different ways to cook. As you can see, I've got a rocket stove here. I don't know if anybody's got one. I just had a wild hair up here a couple years ago, and I started researching I wanted one. I didn't know why, it just kind of looked like fun, so I built it, and my wife's been kind of hesitant about letting us use it to cook. So for Father's Day, I'm like, I want to cook dinner on my rocket stove. She's like, oh. But she had to let me because it was Father's Day, right? So took my Dutch oven, set it on there, and did fried chicken. And did cooler corn. So I've got a stainless steel milk pail and a dog bowl for a lid. Fits perfect. They're both stainless. And I boiled 2.5 gallons of water and then cooked, I don't know, about 4 rotations through a chicken, so like 20 pieces of chicken. And it took 3.5 hours because I was playing around, and I used half of a log.
Really?
Yeah, the log, like a 16-inch round, split it in half, and then just kept splitting little tiny kindling pieces off it. And I used half a log in about 3.5 hours, so they're really efficient. But anything that's that efficient, the downside is you gotta play with it a bunch. I mean, you sit there, you gotta feed it, you gotta keep playing with it. So, anytime you got something really good on this side, you got something bad on that side. So there's all kinds of videos on rocket stoves, all kinds of books. There's little ones, there's big ones. I happen to work with metal and stuff, so this was just a bunch of remnants I had laying around. And I thought, I'm just gonna build this huge one, because if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it good. So it works like a champ though. Chicken was really good. If you guys haven't ever heard of Meat Church barbecue stuff, that stuff's the bomb. They sell it at Shields, and they had some videos, and I've been watching those on how to barbecue and stuff. And oh my goodness, that stuff is good. So, like you brine it in pickle juice, and then bread it twice, and it feels really good. So then I actually decided to build a water heater off the side. Water heater works all right off the side, but it works better to boil your water first and then dump it in and just let it keep warm. Otherwise, it takes a really long time to heat 3 gallons of water. So this other rocket stove here, they're called solo stoves. And actually my wife won that or got it for being at the hospital for X amount of years. And they're pretty expensive. They're like $250 at Shields. But let me tell you what, I was like impressed when we turned it on. It shoots flames out like that. And same thing, when it's done burning, it's done. I mean, it's not like how you watch a campfire go down and go down and go down and go down. This is just, it's done. So they're pretty neat. You got campfire, that's probably the very least efficient. Burn a lot of wood and don't get a whole bunch of heat out of it. I mean, it just goes away, right? Barbecue, you got your propane, your briquette, your pellets. Make sure you have some, a lot of them. So the other thing that we've talked about is like briquettes and stuff. If you do that, you can make your own charcoal, which is good for making black powder. I'm not going to tell you how to do that, but if you have a campfire, you can do those things as you're sitting around the fire. So Smoker. Smoker's really good. They don't use a whole bunch of wood, and you can cook with it. It kind of preserves your meat. It's a little longer. Blackstone griddles are pretty good to have, especially if you're cooking for a lot of people. And then you can always take the top off and put it over top of your campfire if you need to. Safety, obviously. Want to watch your carbon monoxide. Maybe get because we're talking about using the barbecues in the garage if it's cold out and stuff like that. I've done that a bunch of times. So. Shouldn't have to say this, but if you have an open flame, don't put it near anything that'll burn. I might want to have some fire starters laying around. Lighters, matches. I got into a kit too where I was building fire starters. There was one here. Oh, they're not. Basically, these are super simple. These are those little cotton things for cleaning makeup off your face or whatever. And you just melt paraffin and then dip them in there. And you can rip them and they start up, you guys can pass it around. They start up really, really fast. You can use beeswax, paraffin. I played with putting magnesium chips in them so that it looked cool and burn hot. It didn't work for, so.
That works with dryer lint too, I think.
Dryer lint, egg cartons, but the paraffin and the beeswax are the
Pine
flammable
cones.
parts. What's that?
Pine cones.
Pine cones work too.
Yeah, spruce cones, they're a little smaller,
Mm-hmm.
dip them in wax, put a wick in there, just have it out there, just make up a bunch of them and have them on hand. And they go just like that.
Also, deer and elk poop work really good too, because they're grass and they're dried. So, anything with dipped in paraffin or beeswax that's flammable, like cotton or pine cones or pitchy wood or anything like that. So I would have some of that stuff around because lighting fires, you might not want to use gas all the time. Lots of matches. I was telling last class, we rebuild cars and we have this 59 Porsche in there and there's some old wooden matches still in the box. And the guy that works for me, he's like, check out what I found. I'm like, mine. He's like, no, they're mine. I want them. And they're the strike anywhere that really strike and are still good. But I tried one and put the rest away.
Did it work?
They work great. They're the good ones.
Something you can find anymore.
No, you can't.
They sell commercial fire starters. I saw one last night that I thought was really cool. It's called the Backyard Bonfire. I don't know if you guys seen that. It comes in a little metal can. And it showed them making it, so I'm sure they're putting paraffin or Crisco or something in there. And then they had 3 little black wicks that look like charcoal. I'm not sure what's in it, but they said they've sold 5 million of them or whatever, and they're pretty cool deals. So I'm gonna check those out. Butane torches. A lot of people overlook just the torch you have in your toolbox. Fire that up, start your fire.
What ones they make for those 1 pound bottles?
Yeah.
Reuses?
Yep. Cooking utensils. Dutch oven. I was telling you guys about that. There's some super cool videos on YouTube with this old cowboy dude, big old mustache. And they cook everything from cobblers and desserts and chilies and steaks and roasts. And I was asked last class if I had to buy one thing out of everything that was up here, what would it be? I think it'd be that Dutch oven. You can use charcoals, you can use it on a campfire, use it on a propane stove or in your house on your natural gas range, things like that. I think that's the number one thing I would buy. Cast iron griddles, roasting sticks, stainless steel grills, like a lot of people throw refrigerators away. There's grills in there if you need to cook on campfires or make your own smoker or something like that. Aluminum foil or steel foil. How about a cookbook? Anybody read cookbooks anymore, or does everybody get on their phone? Most people get on their phone.
Won't always maybe have the phone, better get your books.
Books are good to have. And then if you know what's in there, they always can be burned, right? Or toilet paper.
Build your library.
Canned food, they actually come in their own little cooking utensil. But you need to open them first. Trust me on that one. Roasting tins and pie plates, you know, the disposable styles. You know, you can use those for indirect heating and stuff to cover your foods with. Percolating coffee pot for you guys that need your coffee. Gotta have one of those. When I was a kid, we went hunting. I didn't know you're supposed to put the grounds in there, and I was gonna do it for my dad and make coffee, you know. I dump it right in there and boil the water. He was pissed. He wasn't happy, excuse me. A lot of people have those turkey fryers or can cookers, you know, big apparatuses out in the garage that they forget about during time of emergencies. But you gotta have propane, right? Gotta have some bottles. We're going pretty quick because you guys are really quiet. Last class, you couldn't hardly talk. Summary, all these components use fuel, have some wood, propane, gasoline, diesel, briquettes, pellets, rolled up newspaper, or buffalo chips if you're in Custer National Park. There's a lot of things you can burn that people don't, you know, remember, so. Yes, ma'am.
We have some property up in the hills,
Uh-huh.
and they've gone through and of course logged those places, and there's just piles of these little jack pines, just ripe for the taking for firewood.
Be awesome, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And where's your property at?
I'm not.
No. Yeah, but you gotta start thinking about that.
Yeah.
And your chainsaw, or your axe, or your bow, or all the things that go with it, gloves, hey, all that stuff. I mean, it's not just, let's go out and pick up wood. It's gonna be a process if you need to go that direction.
And lots of,
And lots of it, yes. And that's what, I was really surprised with that rocket stove, how little it didn't use. I was really impressed with that, so.
Okay, you can make a rocket stove with cinder blocks. Lots of videos on that or in these books. Cinder blocks or red bricks or anything, they don't have to be.
What's the name of that book?
This book's called No Grid Survival Projects. It's a brand new one. It's got everything you can imagine.
They also have a Facebook page because I like that page, and they have a lot of, I actually showed it to Mike. I said, look at this. And he says, Jamie told me about that book. But I like their Facebook page, and they put a lot of interesting information out there.
And they have some links I guess you can go to. The book's $50. It's an expensive book, but since it's newer, I mean, it probably has a lot of the same information, how to do, make a solar panel, what flowers to eat. You guys should surely come up and look at it.
And the rocket stove deal isn't,
Even how to use old batteries to charge a cell phone. Dead batteries, like AA's. I haven't tried it.
the rocket stove isn't a new concept. Indians used to use it, they go find a bank and they bore in and bore down. You can take a log, you can split the log in like 4 pieces, then cut the insides off, put it back together, band it, and use it that way. There's so many different styles of them. I mean, like concrete, 5-gallon buckets and a little bit of foam, you can build them. It's just whatever you're comfortable with. I have metal laying around, so I do metal. So that type of
And
stuff.
that thing weighs about 200 pounds.
But it's cool. No, actually it's hot. Camp, you know, like this old dual fuel camp, so a lot of people poo-poo that stuff, but
Got rid of it. And
what's
then
that?
he finds a good one.
My kid got that for me for my birthday or something. He got it at a rummage sale for $3.99. The lady's just like, here, take it. So,
wow.
What is it, kerosene and
and white gas.
white gas?
Wow.
Coleman fuel. It's really,
Okay.
Number 1 diesel, isn't it? Number 1 diesel?
it's
Cleaner
hotter
than
than
that.
that. It's hotter than that.
It's hotter.
I've actually used blacker thinner. Yeah. You just, when something like this happens, you just gotta use your head and think about everything. An example would be, went down to Hot Springs camping one time. The only thing I had to pull my camper was my 78 Ford pickup. So I get there, and I still don't know what was wrong. I've replaced the whole fuel system, but I ran out of fuel. It had gas in the gas tank, but none in the carburetor. I don't know if it was boiling it. I don't know what was going on. But I'm just backing in the park spot, and I'm backing up traffic, right? And it won't start, So I tried moving it with the starter, backing up, it wouldn't do that. My wife's like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? And I'm like, shut up. And I'm like, where's that hand sanitizer? So she bought some of that distilled hand sanitizer from that distillery in Kadoka. I poured a bunch of that down the carburetor, fired up, backed it in. But yeah, she was like, oh my God, that was so awesome. I'm like, just shut up long enough for let me think. You know what I mean? I didn't say that, and nobody heard that.
I'm supposed to cut that out of the video, is that?
Please do.
Okay. Just-
But there's a lot of things you can do if you just sit around and think about it for a little bit. I mean, there's things that you have in your house that are so flammable, but I'm not gonna tell you what to do. You just gotta research that. So a good teacher or instructor is supposed to inspire you guys to figure it out on your own. Not supposed to tell you, because I don't want to get in trouble for telling you something that you shouldn't do but might keep you alive, that type of deal, so.
Well, I'm sure it's all on YouTube anyway.
If we can find YouTube later on.
Oh, yeah. If we look now, make notes.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of stuff on there that's really cool. We don't even watch TV anymore. We just learn stuff. My wife's like, are you kidding? I'm like, no, that's cool. Huh? You better not try that. Guess what?
Wait till you go to work.
Yep.
How long does gas, last in the gas containers that you buy?
About 6 months, if you're really lucky. You can put some stable in it, and it helps.
Okay.
But gas is not good anymore. California's gone to all fuel injected stuff. Our gas isn't really good for carburetors anymore. Not that it'll hurt the carburetors, but it's made to where it's supposed to be atomized at higher pressures. So like my old pickup, it don't run as good as it did in the 80s. It still runs, but it's not, the fuel's not made for it. So our fuel's not made to last. And I personally, conspiracy theorist, I think they did that on purpose, so that it wouldn't last.
But now, diesel lasts.
Diesel lasts. Yep, if you can get
And you
it,
can make your own diesel, is that right?
you can. Out of frying oil and stuff like that, you can.
What you don't use in your fire starter, you just make diesel.
Right, and I dumped some out the other day, and my kid's like, Dad, I'm like, oh. But kerosene, diesel, Jet A, diesel #1, it's all the same stuff, it's just been filtered a little bit more. So I used to work for a helicopter company and drove a fuel truck. And you're supposed to use Jet A fuel when you're on Forest Service stuff. We used to go count elk and things like that from the helicopter, which was a blast. And
They paid you to do that?
yeah, can you believe that? And I can't hardly count anyway, so. But my boss is like, okay, they're gonna follow you through Butte, lose them and go get diesel. I'm like, but I'm supposed to, he goes, I don't care. So, I mean, you can run the same stuff, it's just, they cost you more for other stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but you can make out of cooking oil, fried.
They've got we have a little cabin and we're off the grid.
Where is that?
I'm not,
I'm trying.
but he likes his coffee, so there's just a little burner that runs on butane. Just take one of those little butane containers, and it works wonders.
Yeah, there's also a deal called, oh crap, I just had it. It's Jetboil. Jetboil is a brand name. I was supposed to talk about solar stoves too. You guys ever heard of those? Scott had one last week, but he's not here this week. And it's a bunch of mirrors and stuff that concentrates the heat down into it. And they're pretty cool. Or warm, however you want to put it. My problem with it is, how long is it going to take to cook something? Is it gonna spoil before it actually gets hot? Or is it, you know, what, I haven't experimented with them enough, but they do make them. And they're hellaciously expensive. You can make your own. There's videos on this stuff about how to make your own heaters and stuff out of water and insulation and things that go on your windows, and just encourage you guys to, if you're thinking about stuff like that, to figure it out now and have your supplies on hand. One thing we were talking about is building some of this stuff. I'm pretty handy, but without my welder and electricity, I'm gonna be doing it with a brace and bit, or till my battery drills run out of batteries, or I won't be welding with the oxyacetylene torch, which I haven't done in like 20 years. I mean, why would you when you got other ones, right? So I guess stay proficient at some of that stuff and make sure you have some hand tools.
If we'd known you were that interested, we would have had you come and thin and trim our trees.
Oh, I would have.
15 acres.
Where at?
Outside, northern suburbs of Piedmont.
Oh, nice, excellent.
Just had it done? You just had it done?
Pardon me?
You just had it done?
Yeah, through Firewise for fire hazard.
And that's what's hard about this class is you guys have really good access to firewood. You know, so a rocket stove or campfire might be like your best deal, right? Where other people live in an apartment, it's like, you're not gonna fire up a rocket stove in an apartment. So just trying to tell you about the different stuff and what, and actually the best idea is to become friends with somebody that's kind of got that set up and be like, all right, I can add this if you guys have that, you know, and unless it's an atlas and you can't get there.
Wasn't this the purpose of this?
Yeah, basically. You guys get to know each other and talk about stuff. Tell me where your property's at.
Oh, wait a minute, what can you bring?
We're on video. I'll tell you later.
He can fix anything.
Yeah, and you know, that was another thing I brought up last time. I actually used to teach at a college, and at a commencement ceremony, one of the guys said, as a young person, you need to go out into your workforce and find an old guy with a great big toolbox. And he wasn't talking about the tools. He was talking about what's up here and get in with them. So really, that's something we should impress on you guys, is to figure out people in your neighborhood or somewhere where you guys can band up and help each other. If we can get out. I mean, during Atlas, we didn't know our neighbors. I lived in the Air Force community where everybody just kind of stayed to themselves and nobody wants to become friends because they're leaving in 2 years, right? But after Atlas, we were all really good friends. When you spend like 4 hours shoveling out one guy's driveway, then you go to the next guy's, and then the guy across the street didn't help, so nobody helped him. I went and helped him because I felt bad for him, so.
I had people shovel so I made cookies.
That's what we're talking about, right? Last class, we had a little old lady in here, she goes, I can't do any of that, but I can can. I'm like, what's your number? You know, because canned meat, I mean,
It's good.
I grew up on a reservation, so that stuff was available to us, right? And I remember opening that and I'm like, I fed it to my dog. I wasn't gonna eat it, right? But once you cook it and get rid of the fat and that type of stuff, it isn't bad. It's not bad. And I think there's probably gonna be a time where you're gonna wish you hadn't fed it to your dog and you had it in your pantry. So, yes, Scott?
And if you can do that with your deer or whatever you've got for meat, and it really will last a long time. My kids, when they had youth deer seasons when they were younger, they shot sometimes 5 deer a year, each of them. So we had 10, 11 deer to process. Some we gave away, but some we processed. I canned a bunch of that just trying it out. Didn't look real good in the jar, but you know, 2 years ago, I opened some of that up. It was old. I mean, it was over 10 years old. And I opened it up and I tasted it. I warmed it up in the microwave. I tasted it. It was good. I ate that jar and I'm sitting here just fine. I never had a problem with it. It wasn't the best in texture and flavor, but you can tweak that with putting stuff in it as you go.
Nor's brown gravy. Norris brown gravy,
Yeah.
so you need a bunch of packets of that.
But if you're looking for protein and you got access to canning,
Yeah.
canning is a really good way to do it.
And you can make jerky too.
Yep, you can.
And if you're hungry enough, you'll eat it.
Yeah. I watched a gal on YouTube, she took her bacon and she cooked it in a pan. She cooked it on parchment paper. And she cooked it about 2/3 of the way through. Then she folded up that parchment paper on it and rolled it up. And she shoved it in her jars, and she canned it
With the paper.
with the paper. And that way, when she cooked it in her oven, she cooked it about 2/3 way through, she got rid of most of the grease. Then she put it in her jar, she canned it, and they leave it like that. You can leave your cans, you don't have to refrigerate it or nothing like that, it's a canned item. They take it out in their camper, and when they go camping, they crack open a can or a jar of that stuff, they got bacon that tastes great. And you can finish cooking it if you want to warm it up that way, or you can just eat it right out of the jar. And so there's lots of things you can do to preserve some of that meat.
So talk about preserving, we got chickens here a while back. I always wanted to be a rancher, never could, so now I'm a chicken rancher. So we got 2 layers from the lady here, and then I got 6 little babies, and then we're getting 2 eggs a day, and then in September we'll get about 8 a day. And they're taking like pickling lime and putting in water, and they just fill up 5 gallons worth of eggs in water and this pickling stuff, and it keeps for years.
Yeah.
And as long as you don't wash them, which the eggs from the store, they're already washed, so you just can't do that. So, it's like I was saying, we refrigerate stuff now that didn't necessarily have to be back in the old days. So,
Yeah. Now they wash off the good stuff.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
My father was born in 36, and he said when he was a kid, they used to, kill a pig every fall. And his mom would fry up the pork chops, not completely, but about, halfway or so. And they'd stack them in one of those ceramic crocks. They'd put the rendered grease or fat on it, and they'd just put layers of that with the fat and seal it. And he said they'd be down in the basement and sell it. And they'd have to go down and scrape the lard off and bring up some pork chops, and they'd finish cooking them. And that's how they kept them.
That's how they did it. And then, I said this last class, and some people didn't like it, but if it gets to the point where you're like live trapping animals and stuff, you don't necessarily need to dispose of them right that second that you find them. You can leave them alive until you're ready to cook them.
Yep.
So, there's lots of things. I've been researching like food from the Civil War and stuff like that. That was nasty. They ate some nasty stuff,
Yeah.
and they still lived, so.
Don't shoot those squirrels.
You're right, I've been leaving them alone lately.
Let them get that.
You gotta fatten them up.
Well, they eat all your cables, so your internet goes down and stuff like that, so I've just been scaring them away.
Sometimes you miss them, right?
Yeah.
One thing you haven't mentioned is a first aid kit, a nice, fairly large one, and a fire extinguisher.
Fire extinguishers are probably a really good idea.
That's a good idea in the safety part.
Yes. First aid, they're gonna actually do a whole class on that, so I'm not supposed to talk about it, but have you tried to buy a first aid kit lately?
They're on the lead.
They're expensive as hell.
They're very, very expensive.
Very expensive.
Compared to last year.
Yes, hugely expensive. So, yes.
That's interesting.
And sometimes the stuff you have in the first aid kit, that doesn't last forever either.
Right.
I've got boxes of Band-Aids and bandages and stuff, and I need a Band-Aid, and I go get one, it's like, this thing's not, they still work, but the backing's hard to get off, it's, they're just aged.
So my wife's a nurse. I've never ever had a first aid kit, and she put one in my shop. And she still gets mad at me when I use electric tape and towels. Really mad, but it works, right?
It's the quickest thing you can get to, right?
So, I might be a little bit tough or bullheaded sometimes, and we were putting a car down on a frame, and jack slipped. Make long story short, the jack handle come over and hit my head. And it knocked my ear off, like a good chunk. I'll show you pictures later if you wanna see them. And, one of the guys who worked for me said, Jamie, you need to go to the hospital. I said, it's just an ear, let's get back to work. He's like, but you're missing half of it. I'm like, it's no big deal, come on. And so he takes a picture and then shows me, all right, we're going to the hospital. So my wife's a nurse, right? Hey honey, you wanna meet me at the hospital for lunch? You don't wanna tell them so they drive real fast, you know what I mean? It's just an ear, right? But that was a pleasant experience. 37 stitches later.
So, I wanna buy one of them from you.
What?
Make me one. Little stove deal. With a can, paint can, the black thing.
Oh, that's fun.
So like a stove top with it, how'd you weld it, what'd you do?
Oh, okay.
Your hot dog party.
This
Yeah,
part?
hot dog grill.
Yeah. Alright, so what I did,
It's a stove top.
I bent this 90, and then I put it on my planishing hammer, and I stretched it until it made a circle. And then I put this through the roller, welded it together, and then
Yes,
yeah,
I want one.
you know, you come over and we'll just do one. So you can learn how to do it. It's kind of fun.
That's blasted.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. I got cans up here for anybody that wants to make Crisco cans, so.
I have a couple dozen.
Me?
Oh.
And they're,
So you probably bought those from his house.
actually, it was a lady that was at Sturtevant, worked at Sturtevant, so she bought them for something else. But anyway, that's all we have really. Any questions or comments? I love hearing you guys' stories about the stuff you guys did too, so.
Can we elaborate on the Crisco and the candles? You warm it up so that it's liquefied a bit, you just set the candles in there?
Yep.
Is it wicking the Crisco up to the bottom of it?
No, it's
Or is the
actually
candle
burning
held
it.
first?
It burns it right around it. And then instead of going down, it just stays up there. And no smell. They're pretty.
She bought the plastic jugs and you peeled it all out of there.
Yep.
Put it in there, got that hot.
Yeah, put this in the barbecue and
Put
then,
some candles in.
yeah. Yeah,
And the candles go all the way to the bottom?
all the way to the bottom.
I was trying to figure out how it was burning the Crisco, I didn't know it was coming up through the stick.
I got, this one's lit right here. If you want to come up and look at it, Ryan, you're more. One went out, but. Yeah. Okay, it's fun. It's kind of like craft, arts and crafts.